few weeks ago, we started a new series called Finding Rest, reclaiming the Sabbath in our lives. And I want to begin this morning with a question that you get asked all the time. And when you get asked this question, there's a gut response, a natural response that all of us, it's the American in us that says this way. Whenever I see somebody that I haven't seen in a while, or they text me, or I answer the phone, which is very rare. I don't answer my phone. I say, I'm busy. Text me later. Whenever I talk to somebody, the first thing they say is, how have you been? You know what I say every time? Oh, I've been so busy. And isn't that your response too? Something has happened over the last 50-ish years in our country where we went from being a people who enjoyed relaxation, who enjoyed leisure time, to now the ultimate phrase that we kind of pin ourselves to is I'm busy. Because if we're not busy, we must not be important. If I'm not busy, I must not be doing my part. And if I'm not busy, I might be lazy. I've mentioned to you guys before that Pastor Kevin and I grew up in a church where, man, there was a lot of sin, but if you were lazy, that was like the penultimate sin. You didn't want to be lazy. You always had to be busy, always had to be doing something, always had to be going somewhere. And so we went to church 5 times a week, and we were on soul winning visitation on Wednesdays. And so when some of y'all are like, Pastor, I can't make it to church, I'm like, you have no idea what you are saying, because we do not have 5 services a week. We do have First Wednesday this week. You're right. We do have First Wednesday this coming Wednesday, but when I was growing up, it was all about do, go, go, go. And it was rarely encouraged to be present. And so I'm going to share with you this morning one of the lies. We've looked at a couple of lies. Man, if I had more, then I could rest. We looked at that lie last week. This morning, we're going to look at the lie. Man, if I just did more, if I do more, I can rest. Once I get done with all this doing, I've got so much to do. And the truth is, you will always have so much to do. There will always be something that's undone. I thought I knew this to be true until I had an 18-month-old, and now there is always something he has undone that Mom just did. And I say, Casey, you've got so much to do. I wish you would get busy doing it because Judah keeps undoing it, and I've got my stuff that I've undone for you to do, so if you could do both, that would be great. And all you moms know, I don't know how single moms do it. It's incredible. So there's always something to do, and I'm not this morning coming before you saying that we need to embrace the spirit of laziness. No, not at all. But over the last 200 years, the level of productivity in our country has increased exponentially. Thanks to technology, you and I are able to effectively do more today than hundreds of people could do 2, 3, 4 generations ago. Communication is easier. Raising food, livestock, easier, more manageable. Cleaning our homes, easier. I have a Roomba. I press a button. It sweeps up. It gets lost all the time. We got to go push it back into the right spot. There's a few minutes saved. And with all this extra time that technology, in the 70s, a lot of futurists and philosophizers were saying, like, one day Americans are just going to have nothing to do because all the technology is going to do it all for them. And here's what we found. The more technology does for us, the more we find to do. And truly, I've mentioned to you that in the Garden of Eden, there was rest and work. And so there's this natural desire put in us by the Creator to do, to create, to make, to do something and not just relax. And so I don't want you to be over here on the wrong side of the issue where you're just so lazy you get nothing done. But I also don't want you to buy into the American myth that if I do everything, I am something. That I've got to make something out of myself. And so I'll begin this morning with a few quotes that I think are timely. Jim Burns put it this way: if Satan can't make you bad, he'd love to make you busy. And that's where a lot of us are. It's not that we're out doing drugs, visiting prostitutes, and by the way, stuff like that happened in the Old Testament. The Old Testament is true to form, and it shows us everything that Samson did, everything that Moses did, everything that these guys did. And so if Satan can't get us doing that, he'll just be like, man, just get busy. Maya Angelou, who her quote will be up there, but one of the things that I found interesting about her was when people would ask her if she was a Christian or tell her that they were a Christian, she would often respond in this way. She'd say, interesting, I'm still working on that. She believed that following Christ was a pattern to be followed. It was a lifestyle. It wasn't something you achieved and just put on your name. It was something that you were constantly striving to be. She said, we often think that our affairs, great or small, must be tended consciously, continuously, and in detail, or our world would disintegrate, and we lose our places in the universe. That is not true. Or if it is true, then our situation was so temporary that they would have collapsed anyway. And this is why when I go on vacation, I can't help but worry about the church. Because I think if I'm not worrying about it, something's going to happen. It's going to disintegrate. What's going to matter? And this is why even when we're getting physical rest and we're not at work or we're not in the office or we're not in the middle of whatever it is we're working on, we're worried about it. We're anxious about it. We're constantly rehearsing it in our minds. Andrew Murray said, "We are far more occupied with our work than we are with prayer. We believe more in speaking to men than we believe in speaking to God." I'm going to read it again because this is the one that did it for me. We're far more occupied with work than we are with prayer. We believe more in speaking to men than we believe in speaking to God. I'm a pastor, and I should be believing in speaking to God, and yet often I'm worried about the meetings that I have, the people I need to talk to, and the things we need to do around here instead of the one I need to be spending time with. So if I could frame this message this way, I want you to understand that our goal is not just to do. Our goal is to be and to be present as we do what God has called us to do, and never to make the doing, whether it's our career, our place in this world, or even our ministry, the sum total of our existence. Mark Buchanan said, "One of the most convicting things I've recently come to realize about Jesus is that he was never, not once, in a hurry." I don't know how important your work is. I'm sure it's very important. I've never met anybody who wasn't super important. By the way, I've never met an employee who wasn't the best employee at their work. I've never met someone who wasn't the best at their job. I know all of you are incredible, and but at the end of the day, most of us, all of us, none of us came here to live a sinless life and die and save mankind. Jesus had the most important job, and what do we find him doing? Walking slowly, stopping what he was doing. He's on his way to raise somebody from the dead. Hold on, this lady needs a hand. Jesus was constantly doing what mattered, but never in a hurry or in a frenzy. Or if I could put it this way, he wasn't constantly torn in which direction to go. Because Jesus knew what was most important. He knew which things were needful. He knew how to spend his time. John Ortberg said, "Love and hurry are fundamentally incompatible. Love always takes time, and time is the one thing hurried people don't have." So, if God, my family, are going to get the love they deserve, they cannot get a hurried version of me. I'm going to say that for every husband who feels the way that I feel sometimes, like, well, I'm going out to provide for you. Well, but you are the very thing they want. We can super spiritualize it in this way. We'll say, God, I'm doing all these things for you, and God will say, but I want to spend time with you. I want to know you. I want to just be present with you. In the Old Testament, God was with his people, Israel. He was present with them. It was the ministry of presence. And this is like a tangent to my message, and I'm going to have to do another series later about the ministry of presence and what we're called to as believers. Then Jesus is physically present on earth, and he's constantly with people. When he was praying in the garden before he's going to die on the cross, what does he want? He wants the disciples to be present with him. There is this ministry of presence. More than I can preach sometimes, I just need to be with people. There's a poem that was written about a man who was dealing with great grief, and the first friend came along, sat down next to him, gave him some advice, prayed over him, said all the right things, and when he got up to leave, the man was glad to see him leave. And another friend came alongside him, sat down next to him, didn't offer any encouragement, didn't offer any advice, just sat there and responded when the grieving man would say something, would occasionally pray over him, would answer questions if the grieving man asked questions, but would sit in silence with him in no rush, in no particular reason to be there, but just to be present with him. And he said, when he got up and left, I mourned the loss of his presence. The ministry of presence is not just doing things for people, it's being with people. And some of us need to understand there's like a hierarchy. There's like, I need to spend time with God and my family. Do not hear from this message, I just need to spend more time with people. You need to spend time with God, and you need to spend time with the people God has placed in your life. And if you're a husband today, it's your family. If you're a mother today, it's your children. If you are here today and you've been blessed with a spiritual family, like you have people in your life who have looked to you for spiritual leadership, you need to spend time with them. And what we find is that we are facing a world where we have two gods vying for our attention. I'll put it this way. Ancient deities demanded the ceaseless work of slaves, the bodies of children, and the fires of war to ensure a good harvest. In our modern age, we laugh at such primitive beliefs, but we're just as pagan. Hear this. The God of this world demands slavish work for our bosses, undernourished relationships with our kids, and the fires of political fervor to keep the harvest of that hoped-for raise and planned-for retirement. We just worship a different version of the same God, and it's busyness for busyness' sake. In the Old Testament, they used the language of Egypt, and Pharaoh was this human who believed he was God. And what did he demand at all times? Work, work, work. Do more. If you're at all involved in the tech industry, you know this week Elon Musk, it was released one of his texts, and one of his texts was, "What have you done this week?" Basically condescendingly saying to other people, and a little bit tongue-in-cheek, "I've done a lot this week. What have you done?" And that is so perfectly emblematic of where our world is. This is what I've done. What have you done? What are you doing? What are you up to? And so I want to give you permission this morning to come into a place where I'm not going to encourage you to do and just keep doing. I want to encourage you this morning. Your Heavenly Father loves you. If you have done incredible things this week, and He loves you if this week has not gone your way. There's a reason that God gives language to a father and the family of God, because a healthy father does not look to his son for what he's done before he loves him. A healthy father loves his son simply for being present, alive, existing. My son is barely old enough to talk. Right now he thinks everything is bubble, bubble, bubble. I said, "Mama." He said, "Bubble." I said, "Bible," because there's a Bible. I was like, maybe we can switch. Bubble. At one point he got in my face. He said, "Bubble." I was all right. I get it. Bubble, bubble. My son does not do any chores right now. I take that back. Actually, we can give him like a diaper or something. Say, "Hey, go throw this in the trash can." He'll throw it. "Hey, go feed Maya." He can do none of this by himself. You have to help him. But my love for him is not dependent upon what he does for us. When he's 10, I'm going to start, or maybe 9, whatever, training him to mow the yard. But at the end of the day, I know the first time he mows the yard is going to be terrible. And there's going to be, mohawks down the middle of the yard. It's going to be awful. But you know and I know that we don't love our kids for what they do for us. It's quite the opposite. Because we love them, we do everything for them, right? Maybe too much sometimes. This is why God chooses this language for us. Busyness is not a virtue. It's often a vice. Of course, God told us this. This is the first verse I'm going to read. It's not going to be on the screen for you, and the rest of them will. Psalm 127:2 says, "It is vain that you rise up early and go to late to rest, eating the bread of anxious toil, for He gives to His beloved sleep." Rest is a gift that God has offered to every one of us. Matthew 11:28 through 30, the prime passage we'll be reading every week together. Jesus says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." He says, "Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me. I'm gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your soul." He says, there's still work to be done. It's still a yoke, but you're going to have inner rest. "For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." And so this morning, I want to help us undo the work of doing in our heart. Untether ourselves from what we've done. I'm not encouraging us to embrace laziness. I'm encouraging us to embrace rest. Psalm 1, verses 1 through 3 puts it this way. You probably know the first verse. "Blessed is the man who walks not in the counsel of the wicked, nor stands in the way of sinners, nor sits in the seat of scoffers." Do you see how it went from walking to standing to sitting? He says, "But his delight is in the law of the Lord, and on his law does he meditate day and night." Meditation requires time. It requires rest. It's not something that fits into a busy schedule. He's like a tree planted by streams of water that yields its fruit in its season. I mentioned to you before that we've planted a dogwood tree in our front yard, and it's taken 2 years, and it is just now taller than me when it started about this tall. You go out there, you could watch it for hours. You wouldn't see any movement, but something is happening. Slowly, but something is happening. It's growing. It says, "And its leaf does not wither, and all that he does," notice that part right there, "all that he does, he prospers." Did you notice how God framed it? He doesn't start by doing, he starts by being planted. If you go through Life Track, and Life Track starts today, one of the first verses I mentioned is another passage in Psalm where it says, every one of us are called to be rooted in the Lord, rooted in his house, rooted and growing. And God always uses agricultural language because it takes time. And we live in a world where everything has to be fast. And so we go, we're busy. And God says, I want you to be planted, growing slowly but healthy in a way that is not only good for you, but it's good for your soul. How many of us know someone who grew too quickly? Everything went their way and they got full of their pride. Psalm 46:10 says, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the nations. I will be exalted in the earth. God has called us to this rest, to this stillness, and yet there's this echoing from culture saying, go harder, do more. Now look, I'm all for going harder and doing more. If you're in the gym, you're getting your workout on, I know you're probably not going to play praise music in your ears to get that rep up, all right? I understand. What we're talking about here is the overarching theme of our lives. Am I giving myself to just do and go and attain? Or has God called me to do more than that, to be more than that? Philippians 4:4-7 says, rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I will say rejoice. Let your reasonableness be known to everyone. In other words, I'm not all the way over here. I'm not all the way over here on every issue. I'm reasonable. I can talk to people. The Lord is at hand. Do not be anxious about anything. But in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. These are verses most of us memorize, but rarely do we live out. This is that unhurried lifestyle. And then in Luke chapter 10, verses 38-42, I want to read you a story you're probably familiar with. You probably already know the difference between Mary and Martha. Mary and Martha were close friends of Jesus. Their brother Lazarus, the Bible actually says Jesus loved them in such a way they were like family. It was like his brother and his two sisters. The Bible says in verse 38, as they went on their way, Jesus entered a village, and a woman named Martha welcomed him into, no, I want you to underline in your Bible, her house. Not Lazarus' house, not her father's house, her house. Very rare for a woman to own a house outright. She was probably pretty wealthy, did all right for herself. She had her own house. And she had a sister called Mary who sat at the Lord's feet. When you think sat at the Lord's feet, that's language for, like Paul said, I sat at Gamaliel's feet. It's the idea of coming under a teacher and learning from them. And so you're constantly following them. When you actually decide to follow a teacher back then, you worked next to them, you ate next to them. It was like a lifestyle of learning at their feet. So the language at their feet, Mary may not have actually been sitting like at his feet, but she was sitting in the room with him just learning. And she listened to his teaching. Now, you know and I know that back then, and still in a lot of the world today, it was understood that when there was a party at the house, the women would be busy doing, and the men would be sitting with the honored guest. Well, Mary chooses to sit with Jesus and to learn and to spend time being present with Jesus. But Martha was distracted with much serving. The language here means it wasn't just that Martha was busy with what needed to be done. Martha, and I don't know how many of you are like this, Martha said, Jesus is coming over. We got to clean everything. Clean the attic, clean the garage, clean the shed out back, clean the neighbor's house. We got to get it all clean. And then she said, on top of that, what we could have is bread, maybe some pasta and a steak, but what we really need is like 4 courses of hors d'oeuvres. We need 3 main courses, and then we need some extra dessert and we need some sitting time with some tea, maybe some coffee. We need all this spread. So what she did was she took this good time she could have had with the Lord, and the language here makes clear she overdid it. Now, I don't know how many of you are like me, but oh boy, if someone's coming over, my wife will tell you, I don't clean well, I hide things, but she'll be like, why are you upstairs right now? Cleaning this room. No one's coming up here. I know, babe, but once it starts, it's like I can't stop. You guys know we had that storm, and all those branches fell, and so I embraced my rest yesterday. I got up, and my son had spent the night with his grandparents, and so my wife and I woke up. We didn't have a child to tend to, and so I slept in, and I had all these branches, and I was like, no. We don't have a son, I'm not cleaning them up. And I walked out front, and all my neighbors, some of them are retired, close to all of them, they're all out there with blowers, and I have a pretty strong blower, and they all know it. And they looked at me, I said, hey, what's up? Hey. So then I'm like, I need to go out there, but I didn't. I was like, no, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. We went on a bike ride. We went on a walk. We did all these things, and all of my neighbors, you can just feel what's wrong with you? Why aren't you cleaning up your yard yet? My mom called me, how much stuff fell in your house? I was like, it's not bad, it probably won't take long. She's like, oh, we're cleaning up our yard. I was like, I know. And I could feel like I need to do it now. And my wife and I were looking around, I was like, it's not a big deal. But then everyone else's yard is clean and ours isn't. And so last night, I made it all day. It's like 4 o'clock. My son came home. He's he's running around. I was like, babe, I'm just gonna get those big branches out of the backyard, just the big ones. And so I start this little fire, and then I'm tending to the fire, and I come in, and I'm late to dinner. There's dinner on the table, and it's obvious Judah doesn't wait for anybody. He's eating. They've prayed, okay? Judah prays, he eats, we're going. And I was just so focused on getting it all just right. And man, when you get that mindset, when you just get going, sometimes you miss what's most important because you're busy with what's right in front of you. And it becomes like, no, I just gotta send this email. I just gotta deal with this problem. I just need to deal with this. And we miss, for me, dinner with my wife and son, most important part of my day. We miss the moments where our presence is most important. Often dealing with things that we know could be pushed back. It says, Martha was distracted with much serving, and she went up to him. Now, this is how close Martha and the Lord are. This is not something that most women would do to most men. She knows him very well. She says, Lord, do you not care that my sister has left me to serve alone? And this is the crazy part. Tell her, she doesn't just say, do you see my predicament? She says, do what I say. Tell her to help me. Some of y'all been on the receiving end of a conversation like that with a busy woman, and you know already what you need to do. All right, whatever I need, where am I? Where can I help? But Jesus responds this way. The Lord answered her, Martha, Martha, you are anxious and troubled about many things. But one thing is necessary. And what he's saying is, bread would have been fine. The main course was all we needed. And then he turns his attention to Mary. He says, Mary has chosen the good portion, which will not be taken away from her. He said, Martha, long after everyone forgets this meal, there are things being said in the other room that you would remember for the rest of your life. There are moments being enjoyed in this room right now, and you have busied yourself with things you will forget about one day. So if I could just take Jesus' words and apply them to every one of us, some of us are missing the most incredible moments in church on Sunday, at home on a Monday night, with our children early in the morning because we're doing things. We're doing things that we couldn't remember a week later. I just want to ask you, could you list for me, without pulling your phone out, could you list for me all the things you did last week, last month, even this week? We like to think that people were so foolish to follow such awful gods thousands of years ago, and we have fallen just as far to the God of busyness. And I know that if somebody asks you, how are you doing? And you say, man, I'm well rested. I feel incredible. I've had a lot of time off. Let's be honest. You know what will happen? You'll feel judged. And here's what I want to release us from a little bit today. I should not feel bad for embracing Sabbath, for embracing rest, and for doing what honors God with my time, being a minister in my family that is present, a ministry of presence. We should not feel bad about that, and we should not allow culture to pressure us into going harder, doing more than what is healthy for our souls, according to Scripture. Look, if you're constantly working and you never take a day off, as I mentioned in our first week, your body will catch up with you. God has built these systems in. It will catch up with you. You're only hurting yourself. So this ministry of Sabbath, this ministry of presence is necessary. My wife's reading a book by Bob Goff, and if you don't know who Bob Goff is, he's written a lot of books, a lot of popular books, Christian books. He's a Christian author. He's kind of a wild character. He's a lawyer who just believes in being present with people. He's one of the happiest people you'll ever meet, according to a lot of people that have met him and talked to him. I've never met him in person, heard him speak a couple of times. And she's reading this book, and he's a lawyer, but he's always making time for people. At one point, he had a table inside Disney World in Southern California where he just allowed anybody who would show up. He just told them all he was going to be there, and he just talked to people. In every book, he puts his cell phone number, which is crazy, just crazy. I've met with pastors and been like, your cell phone should not be in the bulletin, buddy. You got too many people calling you. This guy writes books. He puts his cell phone, and somebody came to him one time, and he mentioned it in the book that he's reading, that my wife's reading right now, which it's so great having a wife that does my sermon prep for me. This is just so great. Every one of you need this. She said, he mentions, like, people still get on to him. Like, how do you get anything done? How can you be productive? And he said, no, you're right. If my goal in life was to be productive, putting my number in the book is a bad idea. But I've never had a goal of just being productive with my life and doing stuff. I love people. I want to know people. I want to be present for people. And how many of us who've never written a book, a New York bestseller, are too busy, even just for the people we would say we love, we would say that matter, God included? This week I went to the hospital because a gentleman in our church got real sick. And I've known Steve a long time. Steve was one of our first trustees at our church. Steve lives right around the corner. Praise God, he's doing better. He's in a step-down room. He was in ICU. When I went there, Kevin went with me. Kevin was out in the hall talking to his kids, and I was in the room. They were only allowing 2 people in the room, and so I was in there with his wife. And Steve was talking, which was good, but you could tell he'd had a rough week. He's just too tough. He doesn't always notice the pain while it's building up. Afterward, I was talking to his daughter. I've met her a few times. She was explaining that when she was a kid, she thought that every year, every kid got their bedroom repainted. Because every year, Steve would repaint his daughter's room. He would take her to the store with all the colors. And apparently he did all the decorating around the house. His wife was saying he just had an eye. He would let her pick any color, millions of colors, but he would always say, I don't know, you might not be able to sleep if it's that bright. Maybe we should do that. So he had his hand. He knew which one. But she just remembers every year him painting, being in the house with her. His son and his wife were telling me that he took care of the gardening, and he designed this house that they built, and he planned all the gardens so that in the very earliest of spring, there would be blooms in the front yard. And then all throughout the summer, something new would be blooming just about every 30 days. And it would all go all the way to like October. Maybe it was mums, but something was blooming in the fall. And he just loved being at his house. He loved being with his family. And Steve ran a business. Steve was a busy guy, if anybody was a busy guy. What I took away from the conversation with his family was Steve was busy, but Steve made time for who mattered too. I think most of us think, man, if I could just get more done, then I could rest. Once I get through this season, then I'll rest. And what I'm telling you is, here's the lie. That lie will hook you for the rest of your life. You will never get to the point where you feel like, now I can embrace rest. And what God does is he gives us rest in Genesis chapters 1, 2, and 3. He lays it out as this thing to be embraced and enjoyed wherever you are in whatever season you are. You need this rest. You don't need to wait until you get more done. You need to embrace it now. You need to make sure that you have time on a weekly basis, on a regular basis. You are Sabbathing, Shabbating, stopping and enjoying. This ministry of presence is what everything comes down to. At our church, this morning, Pastor Kevin mentioned there was dozens of people here early getting ready to serve, and they're doing today. They're doing some things. One of our goals as a church is never to be a church where we just sit idly by as the world has needs. We want to do, we want to go, but never at the expense of our rest. And so on Sundays, there are people who are going to come in this week and they're going to do. There are people who are going to come in on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, they're going to serve. But always with this understanding that we have this one life. We could never do everything we want to do. We could do anything we want to do. We can't do everything we want to do. We have to do what's most important. And so with our staff, with our leaders, with our coaches, everybody who serves at this church, we make clear to them we want their relationship with God, their relationship with their family to take priority and precedence over everything church-related. We believe God has given us a calling. There is New Testament language where we're called to do, but we're also called to rest. So this morning, I just want to remind you that if you're a follower of Jesus, you are loved no matter the level of doing, no matter how much you get done. And the reason this is so life-changing is because Jesus, in Matthew 11, 28 through 30, was talking to a crowd of people who had been burdened and heavy laden with this idea. They would try to keep the law. They had to keep their sacrifices straight. They had to attend at least 4 out of the 7 festivals. It was expensive to get to. They had to do all these things, and then they still felt like God was a million miles away. The good news of the gospel this morning is when Jesus died, he said, "It is finished. It's done." There's nothing more you can do to save yourself this morning. You're going to do good things. Some of you, you've already given this morning. You're no more saved or less saved than you were before you gave. Some of you next week are going to get baptized. Next Sunday is Baptism Sunday. You're no more or less saved before or after baptism. It's done. When you place your faith in Jesus, he's done all the heavy lifting, y'all. He just says, come on, come with me. Some of you, you're going to go through Life Track in the next couple of weeks. You're going to get joined into a church, and you're going to be a team member. We don't use church member. We use team member language because we're all serving together. You're no more saved or less saved. The work is already done. You're not going to work your way into heaven. You're not going to give your way into heaven. You're not going to baptize your way into heaven. I have conversations with people all the time who are like, I need to get baptized again. And I just wrestle with them a little bit. Say, tell me why. Because if you've been baptized 13 times, obviously you're not sure this thing is done. It's done. God saved you. You are born again. I've got good news for you this morning. You can't baptize yourself. You can't work yourself. You can't give yourself. You can't pray yourself into heaven. But you can trust that he's already done the work. And I can think of no worse way than to live your life trying to earn your way into some status, trying to earn your way into heaven, trying to feel better about yourself in this world by what you've done. I mentioned to you that Friday night, my wife and I didn't have a son, so we weren't responsible for him. I'll put him that way. And we went out to dinner. We went to this place where she'd been wanting to go as a Cuban place, and they only do takeout. They don't have a sit-down place. So it's mainly DoorDash and then like people getting it to go. Well, it's all the way out in Virginia Beach. We weren't going to make it home in time, and so it was raining, pouring Friday night. I said, where are we going to go sit down and eat a meal? Like, you're not allowed to just bring, hey, Panera, we're bringing in our food from somewhere else. They're not going to allow that. And so, like, the only place left was Lynn Haven Mall. It was out that way. So we walked into Lynn Haven Mall, and she even said, I feel terrible bringing food into Lynn Haven Mall we didn't buy here. I was like, babe, this is just the world we live in. Because I read an article 2 weeks ago about the disappearance of third places in America. And this is one of the reasons we're so anxious and worried and divided, too. 100 years ago, there were places where you could go, you could rest, you could sit, you could enjoy time, and people lived a lot of times in downtown areas where they'd walk and meet people, and now we live in our cars, and if you're going to go sit somewhere, you have to buy something. You can't just be present. You can't just exist in most places anymore. And so our whole economy and even our whole community sometimes is built around, hey, you got to do something to be here. You need to purchase something. You need to have a reason to be here. Hey, move along. And I tell you, it's even creeping into it. There was nobody in Lynn Haven Mall. Maybe it was because of the storm. Maybe it's because malls are dying. My wife mentioned it because we both noticed it. She finally said, is it just me or are there more security people here than people? There were just everywhere. There was security. And you could tell they were kind of like, what are you doing? What's up? And I know they've made some new laws for minors under 17 unattended or whatever, but it was very much like, why are you here? What are you doing? Move along. If we aren't careful, the culture around us, even the community we live in, will rob us of the ability to just be present. We bought tea from Chick-fil-A so we didn't feel bad sitting in the food center, okay? Full disclosure, we earned our way to be there that night. This morning, you came into church. Whether you serve here, whether you give here, whether you never do anything but come and you are welcome here, because God says, come. Now, he does say there's going to be a yoke. He does say, follow me. There is this idea, where to serve, where to go, where to give. But he says, come. We don't do those things to earn his favor. We do those things because we're part of the family. My son will do chores one day. hopefully out of a love for us putting a roof over his head, though I understand teenagers don't have that type of perspective at all. I want you to hear me say this. The family of God is a place where you're loved regardless of what you've done or haven't done, regardless of how good you do or do not look on paper or in person. This rest, when lived out in a healthy way, is so attractive, so joyful, so life-giving. It's almost like a city set on a hill, a light in the dark world. So I believe if we are living rest-filled, joyful lives, people will take notice and they'll say, what do you have that I don't? What's different? And so I just want to encourage you this week. When somebody says, how you been? Don't say busy. Say, man, I've been blessed. I've been good. God has been good to me. Things are going well. I've always got stuff that's going to get done, but you know what? I've learned all the stuff is eventually going to get done. I need to do what's most important for me. I need to do what's most important for God. I need to do what's most important for my family. I need to figure out what that is. And for some of us, it's going to be a recalibration of our schedule, of our time, of our energy, of even our minds. And so this morning, I've got good news. Whether it gets done or not, what's most important has been done. Spiritually, you have forgiveness, salvation, and then you have a decision. How will you spend your time this week? What will you do to honor God, to love your family, to be the Christ follower he's called you to be? Can we pray together? Jesus, I love you. I'm grateful for this rest you call us to. And I know that this rest comes alongside of even when you're parenting, even when you're busy, even when Little League and volunteering and school projects and all the busyness of work and life and then laundry and then cleaning the house and mowing the yard, all of these things, God, they're not going away. We live in a fallen world, but if we can embrace rest in the midst of it, what a beautiful picture of the gospel that would be. So Lord, this week I pray that we would truly give it all to you. Not just to know, God, I give it to you and I'm going to move on. No, like, God, I'm going to consider how I spend my days. I'm going to consider how I spend my evenings. I'm going to consider how I spend my mental energy and what it is that I'm allowing to rob me of the most precious resource I have, and that's my time. God, I pray that you would make us all ministers of presence. We would be present with our family. We would be present with the people that we love. We would be present with the people we're loving and leading and caring for. God, to some of us, this sounds far-fetched, unrealistic, and even utopian. It is. It's the kingdom. It's supposed to sound unrealistic. It's supposed to sound super spiritual. Because it's supernatural. It's not of this world. This peace passes all understanding. So God, I pray that over our lives. And God, I pray for anybody in the room who might not know you. That something I've said or read today would spark an interest and a curiosity that would draw them to trust you, to know you, to love you. God, I pray this in the name of Jesus.